Welcome everyone to another episode of Multi-Chain Sessions with Moonbeam. I'm Francisco. I help out with ecosystem development at Moonbeam and Moonriver. And yeah, I'm quite happy today. We have a special guest from Athos Finance. So we'll probably learn a little bit more about what they're building. So yeah, thanks for joining. I think it's Kelvin, one of the co-founders or the founder of Athos.
Hey, Francisco. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to share more about Athos what we do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Thanks for being here once again. I mean, maybe we can just kick it off with the basics, right? Could you maybe explain to the audience what Athos Finance is?
Sure. So what we do, right? Athos Finance is essentially a decentralized DeltaOne asset protocol on Moonbeam, right? So, or some people also call it a synthetic asset protocol. So, at a high level, what we allow users to do, right, is that users can deposit collateral to mint Athos USD, right? Then they can use the Athos USD to go open positions for synthetic assets available on an exchange, right? So these synthetic assets can include cryptocurrencies, forex, commodities, or even market indexes, right? So I think what really is interesting about it is that it opens up a lot of opportunity because you can gain price exposure to these assets without actually holding them.
Got it, got it. And maybe for the people that aren't like so native in the financial world, could you maybe explain what are like DeltaOne and synthetic assets, since they're kind of an integral part of your protocol?
Yep, of course, of course. So let me start off with DeltaOne, right? The term delta, right? Delta in the finance world, right, usually just means the rate of change of the price, underlying under the price of the underlying asset, right? The price of the product is, right, compared to the underlying asset, right? So delta one essentially means that the rate of change of the product. So whenever an investor buys a DeltaOne product, right, then it should give investors the same exposure as if an investor were to own the underlying asset directly, right? So for example, if user invests in synthetic Ethereum, for example, right, then the synthetic Ethereum should give you the same price exposure as if you were just holding Ethereum directly, right? And for synthetic assets, so the second point, right, synthetic assets, right? Synthetic assets essentially are just tokenized derivatives, right? So in the traditional financial world, derivatives are representation of assets, right, that a trader can trade, but they do not own it themselves. Right? They can buy and sell, but they do not own it, right? So if you want to, for example, profit from the price fluctuation of an asset that you don't own, right, you can do this through a derivative. And synthetic assets is processed one step further by having it available on the blockchain.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. By the way, Kelvin, I think it might not just be me, but you're cutting up a little bit. I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi connection. But yeah, just a heads up that at some
All
point
right.
you were cutting up there.
All right. Got it. My bad. Is it a
Um,
little bit?
yeah,
Go
no,
ahead. Go ahead.
it got better at some point, so I don't know if you moved to a
Okay.
better spot, but um,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Yeah, no, that helps everyone give more context. And what inspired you guys to build Athos? Maybe you can give a brief history on you and the team, how it all started.
For Athos, right? So, which is actually also involves two other projects: linear finance and financial exchanges, right? So, linear finance was the first out of the three to launch a while back on Ethereum BSC, right? Then earlier this year, the team launched chaotic finance on Kusama via Moonriver, right? And now we're launching Athos on Polkadot via Moonbeam, right? So essentially, what we want to do is basically grow the presence of synthetic exchanges on different ecosystem, right? Which is why we decided to build Athos Finance, right? And a bit about myself. So I've spent most of my career at technology companies and major conglomerates across Asia, right? So I've taken on a wide range of roles, from operations, strategy, product. So I think my experience with fintech, right, actually made me realize there's a lot left to be desired in the current system, right? Which I thought DeFi could be an interesting space to be in, to do something new and innovative, right? So I think that's where we started, decided to, you know, go into building Athos, right? Since then, we haven't looked back.
Cool, cool. And are you building this thing yourself, or maybe you can give some background on the team? How many are you? That would be useful as well.
Sure. So right now we have a team of four. So then myself, and then we have a product designer, and then we also have two engineers, right? So both engineers, they have quite a bit of experience coming from just a bunch of DeFi products, right? From uh, launch pads and things like that, right? So and we also fully supported by the linear team as well, right? So they have been super helpful along the process while we're trying to build out Athos.
Got it, got it. And yeah, you mentioned there in your answer like the names chaotic finance and linear finance. What's the relationship between Athos, chaotic, and linear? And if you could maybe outline like the similarities or some of the differences that are between these projects.
Sure, sure. So actually, the three projects we all work very closely together. So like I said, right. So Linear Finance was the first to launch a while back on BSC, right, Ethereum, right. So and the team has always been very interested in growing the presence by expanding to other chains, right. So and Polkadot and Kusama were always high on the priority, given the interoperability, right. So and that explains why. Chaotic Finance was launched on Moon River, and now we're doing Athos Finance on Moonbeam, right? So, in terms of similarity and differences, right? So, linear, chaotic, and Athos are similar in a way they are all DeltaOne asset protocols, right? Synthetic exchanges, right? And the difference is that Athos is developed by a separate team, but then we are still very well supported by Linear, right? And the chaotic team. And we also have a separate roadmap that's tailored to the needs of the Moonbeam and Polkadot ecosystem, right? So I think in short, right, we all started very similar, but then all projects are going very different directions, right, based on the needs of the ecosystem that they're built within.
Okay, cool. And Matt, you kind of spoke about it briefly in terms of why you decided to build on Polkadot and Kusama. Um, could you maybe dive a little deeper into what kind of steered you into the direction of Moonbeam and Moon River?
Sure. So I think for us, right, I think the interesting part about to be right, given a of how parachains interact with each other, right? And I think, and then for us, I think we started Linear started off building on BSC and Ethereum, which are obviously like EVMs, right? So I think for us, Moonbeam is a no-brainer for us, right? Given it's so it allows us to deploy a lot easier, right? Instead of writing everything from scratch, right? And change as well for Polkadot, right? Which is a huge plus for us.
And could you maybe dive a little deeper into like how users can benefit from Athos Finance, and what are some of like the use cases, some tangible use cases that might be impactful moving forward?
Sure. I think the most interesting thing about exposure actually holding on to. So, and by doing that, it actually gives a lot of benefits, right? One is basically the inclusiveness of it, right? So there's no need for anyone to have a brokerage account or permission from any sort of centralized entity. Anyone in the world can now have access to the market, right? So in a country without access to financial market, right, we want to gain exposure to, for example, commodity by holding synthetic assets, right? The second point is the ability to compose, right? So synthetic assets on Athos, right, can be used on Athos or other protocols, right, to put together some pretty creative financial products, right? I think one of the very interesting thing that could be done, right, is like to have an index, for example, that tracks a basket of different assets from different classes, right? For example, an index that tracks cryptocurrencies, forex, and commodities all at once, right? All trades happen on chain. All the collateralized assets are stored on chain as well. You can view all the activities of the protocol as well as the asset store on the contract, right? So it allows us to be fully transparent and auditable, right? So anyone can actually see what's going on on Athos.
Got it. Got it. Kelvin, do you think it would be? I think it would be help if you maybe disconnect and reconnect again because you're cutting up a lot, and yeah, I don't. I think it's hard for the public to follow.
All right, let me try to jump off and jump back in again. Let's see if it helps a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Let's try. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
All right.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I think we left it off. Why you decided to build on Moonbeam and Moon River, and then the follow up question was how can users benefit from Athos? What are some of the use cases that could be impactful for the protocol?
Yep. Yeah, why don't I can talk a little more again, right? But basically, why we decided to go on Moonbeam, right? So I think we've always want, I mean, linear, right? We've always wanted to expand our presence and community other chains, right? So I think Polkadot was for us, it was a great place to be, right? Given the setup of how parachains can interact with each other, right? And Moonbeam, of course, was a no-brainer for us, given it's EVM compatible, so it was easy for us to deploy a Moonbeam, right? Instead of writing everything again from scratch, right? And also the ability for us to communicate with other parachains is huge plus, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We've gotten that feedback quite often from other
Yeah.
projects where it's just kind of seamless to leverage the same code base. And then you kind of moved into like actual use cases, which I think is interesting because it's always kind of theoretical when you talk about the protocol itself and what it does, and sometimes it can be different in terms of what are the practical use cases in terms of what users are actually doing with the protocol. So I don't know if you can speak to some of those use cases that might be useful for some of the people listening.
Sure. So I think the interesting thing about a synthetic exchange, right, is that users can actually get price exposure without holding on to the assets, right? So some of the interesting use case could be, for example, and basically, if you're a trader, right, in a country with access to financial markets, right, but then you also want to gain access to, let's say, commodities or forex, right? You can actually do so easily by holding synthetic assets because you don't have to have a brokerage account or any permission of any sort from a centralized entity to participate in asset trading, right? Synthetic assets. So that's a huge plus, right, in terms of inclusiveness.
Got it, got it.
Okay.
And do you necessarily have to be a trader
Since
to kind of
on
participate in
Athos,
the
right, or other
protocol, or
protocols, with that, right, you can actually put together some pretty creative financial products, right? Imagine you could have an index, right, that tracks a basket of different cryptocurrencies and forex and commodities all in one index, right? So then that makes it a lot easier for people to invest, right, if they want to invest in a basket of different assets, right? And lastly, I think a benefit of synthetic exchange is that all trades are on chain, and also collateralized assets are also stored on chain, right? Auditable smart contract. So everyone can see the activities of the protocol on the chain, right, as well as the assets stored in the contracts. So it allows us to be fully transparent, right, and auditable, right, for what's going on on the project.
okay, cool. Yeah, no, that sounds quite interesting, and the audio is way better now, by the way.
Awesome,
Um,
awesome.
in terms I mean, DeFi can sometimes be a little bit intimidating for a lot of people coming into it. If you're a beginner or a user that wants to start kind of experimenting with Athos, how would you recommend them to get started? Are there any upcoming campaigns that you guys are having?
Sure. So I think for us, right, we're launching a token as well as a product in early August, right? So we are progressing well. We're excited for the launch, and we're also doing a number of giveaways, right, for our partners right now. So be sure to check them out and participate. And once the product is live, right? So as long as if you're holding Athos tokens, right, you can use them as collateral to mint Athos USD, which is the base currency of Athos exchange, right? And then with the Athos USD, you're free to open long or short positions of synthetic assets, right, on our exchange, which can include cryptocurrencies, forex, and commodities, right? So then that will be how it works, right? Once the product's live and you're able to trade synthetic assets on Athos.
Got it. Understood. And maybe going a bit broader now, what do you think like of the current state of DeFi? What gets you excited? What are you concerned about? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the current market, and I know that's kind of a popular topic right now. It'd be great to get your own take.
Sure. I mean, overall, the way I see it, right, is I think there has been a lot of uncertainty in the DeFi space right now, right, which is, I mean, no doubt, right, everyone sees it, right. We have grown tremendously in the last year or two, right, and now we're seeing a bit of slowdown. I think, in my opinion, I think it's completely normal, right, just like, every market's out there, right, there's always cycles of ups and downs, right. So, but on the bright side of this, I think it's also interesting to see that some of the biggest DeFi protocols out there are still working the way it should be, right? Given the market volatility out there, right? So, I think in a way it's a great stress test for DeFi, the whole DeFi space as a whole, and then it goes to show that by building people have actually been putting in a lot of hard work, right, from different projects, actually building out solid products that can withstand quite a bit of market volatility, right? And then in terms of for us, right, I think our team is like fully focused on the long term, and so we're not really bothered by the market at the moment. So we're just keeping our heads down. We work hard. We build something. We're building something that users will truly appreciate.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, how do you see kind of DeFi evolving? I'm sure the regulatory framework I mean, do you think that like regulation is going to influence DeFi, or how do you kind of see it evolving over the next few years?
I think from the regulatory standpoint, I think well, the space has grown so much, right? So I think there's been a lot of talks about regulations coming in and all that, right? And I think in general, I think there's always good and bad, right? But then I think it's all about finding the right balance, right? I mean, with regulation, as long as it's not too stringent, where it basically stop allowing any innovations from happening, right? Then I think it's a good thing because having regulation, that's where you allow uh, things to go mainstream, right? And that's where crypto is really going to take off, right? By having everyone really participating, right? Because I think now there are a lot of people who are trying to participate, but then they're not very sure how to go about it, right? But then once there's regulation in place, then I think that's where it gives the people a lot of peace of mind, right? About how they can jump into this space and give it a try.
Yeah, no, for sure, I agree. And a few weeks ago, I think Athos released their product roadmap. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and kind of which component of that roadmap you're most looking forward to?
Sure. So I think in general, I think we're very excited about everything on the roadmap. I think for us, the part that stands out the most for us, right, is really upgrading our debt pool to multi-collateral, right? So at the beginning, when we first launched a product in August, right, I think it will only support using Athos tokens as collateral to mint Athos USD. Uh, but then once we upgrade to multi-collateral, right, it means users can actually collateralize assets other than our own native token, right? So it actually opens up a lot of opportunity for other users who might be holding non-native assets, right, to participate in our protocol. So we plan to have this multi-collateral feature out before the end of this year. So in our phase one, we're looking to start with having Glimmer, RevEth, RevBTC, and Linear's Linear token, right? From BSC bridge over, right? For multi-collateral, and we already started groundwork on this front actually. So I think it was about a couple of weeks ago we announced our partnership with Nomad, right? So to enable a chain bridge for Lena. So working with the Nomad team to bring Lena from Ethereum BSC over to onto Moonbeam as part of the preparation to launch our multi-collateral feature, right? So and eventually, we're starting with 4 assets right now for multi collateral, right? But then eventually, I think our plan is, of course, to include as many as possible, right? Further down the road. So we're really excited about that because I think that's where we're able to get a lot more traction, right? Because now other users who are holding other assets can also participate in our in Athos as well.
Yeah, it's quite cool. I mean, I know we've worked closely with Nomad as well, and these types of cross chain use cases are definitely gonna be more relevant moving forward. And Moonbeam is very much aligned with having more types of these use cases for sure. So no, that's cool to hear. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of the main questions that I had in mind for today's talk. I don't know if you want to say some last words, Kelvin, towards the community, and maybe we can open it up to some questions if people have any.
Sure. I think, I mean, in general, like, happy to answer any questions you guys have, right? Or, if you guys do want to ask questions here, feel free to just jump in our Discord, ask questions. I'm always there to answer any questions, or just drop by and say hi, right? Always happy to meet new people from there as well.